we're going to have a question and answer time now. So if anybody would like to ask any questions, please will you come, you can line up here and you can ask Khenpo what you need to know.
You mentioned earlier that there's various meditation techniques for psychological imbalances. Could you elaborate what meditation techniques for which psychological imbalances, and where can this knowledge and information be obtained?
In fact, there are quite a few different methods and techniques of meditation available to us. Almost every form of meditation practice is generally referred to as calm abiding. When we first begin this kind of calm abiding practice, we often encounter various discursive thoughts that arise. These discursive thoughts are significant because they cause the mind to become scattered and lose its natural focus, making it difficult to remain present. If we use our own mind to carefully observe the mind itself, we may eventually come to recognize the mind's true and profound nature. As it is stated in the Diamond Sutra, one should give rise to a state of mind without dwelling on anything or staying attached to anything. When you observe the mind, you realize that this mind is originally empty in its nature. It is simply the case that within this vast emptiness, its wondrous power can begin to manifest everything. When you truly come to recognize this profound state of mind, you realize that many of the unrealistic, discursive thoughts we see in daily life can actually gradually fade away and disappear. This is one of the most effective and powerful methods of meditation available. True meditation may not be fully mastered in just a short period of time. Achieving success in any meaningful endeavor in this world requires consistent, dedicated effort and a significant amount of patience. I don't know if you have seen this before. There is something called the 10,000-hour rule. There is a book that specifically talks about this. So for our mind to become more balanced and capable, it may take a little longer because in the past, some practitioners of Chan Buddhism and many practitioners of Tibetan Buddhism practiced this kind of meditation for a long time. They would practice for many years in the forest. In the end, their minds could completely settle and remain at ease at any time, whenever they wished. Of course, at the beginning, it is not easy for your mind to settle.
You were speaking about Socrates and the ability to tame a wild horse, and how we should be grateful for having those beings and energy in our life. How long how long do we stay? Because in our practice, in our day-to-day life, it's about love and compassion and the simplicity and walking away from a bias. But how long? How much?
Actually, the longer you are able to endure and persevere through these challenges, the better your results will be.
Of course.
The reality is that if we are very skillful horse trainers, it takes a long time to tame a wild horse because of its strong nature and temperament. Even an experienced trainer must patiently spend much time before the horse can be fully tamed. It clearly shows that the wild horse's body and overall mental state are relatively strong and healthy. Because of this, we can be completely reassured. It won't be easily hurt or discouraged in a short period of time.
I wanted to follow up on the discussion you were having with us about depression and anxiety. These mental illnesses, do they exist in Tibet? Is my first question. Second of all, what forms of treatment are used? And the third question is, what is the understanding of the causes of these types of mental illnesses, if in fact they do exist?
In the vocabulary of the Tibetan language, we have recently created a specific noun that describes this particular concept we are discussing. In the past, when people asked whether there was such a thing as depression, no one knew the name of this mental illness at all. But since last year, this has gradually changed. We just created a term for it called duotsar. The word duo refers to a kind of doubt, and tsar means a certain kind of worry. If you were to attempt to translate the actual underlying meaning of the word depression into Tibetan, it is a kind of mental illness involving anxiety and a lingering sense of doubt in the mind too. In the history of Tibetan regions, almost no one understood what depression was if you mentioned it. Even now, many people may still not fully understand what it all means. Perhaps a very small number of people have depression. A little while back, I met a student from Tibetan region who shared his concerns that he might be struggling with depression, and he sent over some information to me regarding the various symptoms he was experiencing. He said he had all the symptoms, he wanted to commit suicide, and many others as well. So there are Tibetans who have it, but it's not common. This is the first issue. Now, in traditional Tibetan regions, for those who may not have religious faith, the therapeutic methods used here are the same as other standard ways of treating depression. Other than that, there are no specific medications or unique medical treatments required. But for those with faith, they might recite certain spiritual mantras. When I was at a school in the United Kingdom, I also gave some lectures and shared my experiences. At that time, there were quite a few people in the UK suffering from depression, so I also taught them the heart mantra of Akshobhya Buddha. This mantra is widely believed to be very powerful and effective. Many people feel that by relying on the power of this mantra, their depression has been cured. There are such cases. So we use a variety of spiritual mantras and some deeply relaxing methods to treat the condition with relatively relaxing or meditative techniques. Other than those practices, there is really nothing else. As for the third question, moving on to the matter regarding its specific origin, even the medical community in Tibet is currently not very clear at all regarding this matter right now. So, just like the global medical community, up to now there hasn't been any particularly clear finding. Whether someone suffers from depression or anxiety, many leading medical experts today believe that these conditions are a common disease of modern times. It is a kind of complex psychological disorder. So in the Tibetan region, there haven't been any special discoveries about the exact origins of this illness.
Sorry, may I just ask a follow-up question? It would appear to me to be a condition in the West, that conditions here, causes and conditions here in the West are producing depression and anxiety in people in unprecedented numbers. The question I have for you is, since you've been traveling much in the West, what have you learned about the conditions here in the West that is promoting these types of illnesses?
Of all the countries I have visited, the United Kingdom probably has the most serious situation. At that time, they said the UK had a population of more than 60 million people. There were about 1 in every 6 people suffering from depression at that period of time. Of course, there are different opinions about this data, and people express various views regarding these numbers. Some countries in Northern Europe are also considered quite serious. They believe that in places like Norway, because people receive little sunlight throughout the day, this may cause a kind of depression among them on a regular basis during the long winter months. They often can't see the sun. There's also the saying that depression is caused by this lack of sunlight during the long winter months. Nowadays, it's said that the situation in the United States is also getting serious. And by comparison, from my own experience in Tibetan region up to now, the number of people who suffer from depression is still very, very few, especially compared with many other places around the world.
Khenpo, you mentioned a mantra that you could use. Could you please tell us, give us transmission of that mantra? And then also, I want to ask, how does karma actually ripen? And another question is generating bodhicitta. It's easy for us to generate bodhicitta for our friends and family and people that we love. But to generate bodhicitta for somebody that we might consider our enemy or somebody that we dislike, it's very difficult. How do we generate bodhicitta for people like that? And then also, how do we actually check whether our bodhicitta is genuine or not?
The first is actually about the mantra I just recited to you. Zanja Maha Rokhan Hongpat. According to Buddhist teachings, when humans destroy nature through careless actions and harmful deeds, they are actually harming themselves and the world around them, creating serious consequences for all beings everywhere throughout this vast natural world. Because of this, the 8 classes of Devas and Nagas become especially displeased. At this time, we rely on this kind of mantra to reduce some conflicts between us. This mantra has such a power, so by reciting Zanja Maha Rokhan Hongpa, we can understand this special power more deeply and bring more harmony into our relationships and the world around us. The second matter is the ripening of karma. In fact, the ripening of karma is very much like the crops that farmers plant. Some of these, due to the differences in the quality of the seeds and farming methods, will begin to blossom and bear fruit in a short period of time. Others, however, will not do so quite so rapidly. It might take 2 or 3 years, or even more than 10 or 20 years. In much the same manner, the virtuous and harmful actions we commit plant seeds in the alaya consciousness of our mind. These seeds, through time and various conditions, gradually ripen. Good deeds bring good results, and evil deeds bring bad results. It is not that there is no consequence. As the time has not yet come, the retribution has not yet occurred. For this reason, the maturation of our causes and conditions occurs. The seeds we just planted are merely an external condition. As for internal conditions, they have their own causal relationships. This principle is taught in the Buddhist scripture, the Sutra of the Rice Stalk, as well as in the Abhidhamma Kosha, where it is discussed in greater detail. Only then can we understand how causes and conditions ripen. The third question, it is indeed easier to cultivate bodhicitta towards close friends and family. It's not easy at first to cultivate it towards enemies or those you resent, but gradually, just as you love your close friends and family, as this profound love is gradually extended outward, it can be further expanded to encompass every sentient being. This concept is remarkably similar to the universal teachings found within the traditions of Christianity. If someone strikes your left cheek, you should offer your right cheek to them as well. This represents a profound form of patience and is also a practice of unconditional love. In Buddhism, we have a very similar concept as well. Actually, the cultivation of love in Buddhism is even easier to practice because it teaches us to treat every single sentient being as if they were our parents. At this point, whether it's an enemy you resent, someone of a different religion, or someone of a different skin color, you should cherish and love them just as you love yourself, because every single sentient being in existence naturally and deeply loves themselves. Actually, Christianity also teaches this very same principle of universal compassion. Since you love yourself, other sentient beings also need love. As you gradually spread this principle, at first it is not easy to practice, but slowly you truly come to treat all sentient beings, including others and even enemies you resent, as being exactly like your own close friends and family, and you develop a sense of compassion and care for them.
Earlier on, you were talking about beliefs, which is very prominent at the moment to me. They say from the time a child's born until the time it's 6 years old, the personality of that child is developed for the rest of its life. And me personally, the worst things I've learnt in terms of racism have come from my schooling, my church going, in the world we're living in today. Do you continue to gather information that is new from that time onwards, or is it set? And if so, if the consciousness is set between birth and 6, when those patterns are so ingrained and stubborn, when you know something's wrong, but you find yourself to be doing it anyway, how do you catch that? And how do you collapse that thought pattern, even if it's negative towards yourself and what you've been told, to make that go away, so your karma and your pattern doesn't keep repeating into your adulthood. Thank you.
The question you just raised is very meaningful and important. This is because for every child from the age of 1 to 6, the most important stage of growth that shapes their future memories and personality development occurs during this period. So nowadays, many people in our country often refer to this period of early childhood as kindergarten. Children attend kindergarten before the age of 6, but the habits formed before the age of 6 are something deeply and permanently ingrained for them. For example, in the past, we did not typically go to school at home, but at that time, all the daily behaviors of the parents were still profoundly significant and lasting influences throughout the entire course of the child's life and future development. And so, throughout the course of their early childhood years, if you happen to encounter any racial discrimination or any various forms of abuse, then indeed, throughout the entire course of their adult life, it forms a deeply ingrained pattern of behavior that becomes incredibly difficult to change or overcome. This happens because when dealing with domestic violence or emotional abuse, the child grows up constantly under its heavy influence from a very young age, internalizing these experiences as they develop into maturity, or potentially gradually cultivating a deep sense of fear or developing certain behaviors that express contempt toward others. So a child's growth from a young age and educational environment are still very important throughout their life development and future growth as well too. In ancient China, there lived a famous philosopher named Mencius, and for the sake of his education and studies, his devoted mother chose to move their household several times to provide a better environment for her child. At first, they moved near a cemetery, but fearing its negative influence, they moved again, this time near a school, and so on. So my suggestion is, to be honest with you, right now, I am extremely worried because I don't know what the situation is like over here. For example, where we are, whether it's Tibetan people or others, their young 5 or 6-year-old children spend all day playing on their mobile phones, watching movies like Harry Potter and The Lion King, and all kinds of animated cartoons. Unfortunately, some of these cartoons contain violence, pornography, and all sorts of other inappropriate things. Anything that isn't very healthy can have a significant impact on their development. We suggest that if parents have a religious faith, they should attend church regularly and participate in charitable work. In this way, gradually for the children, they will learn from these positive examples. Even though they can't do much directly from a young age, especially before the age of 16, if you take them to places that are meaningful for their daily life and long-term healthy development, then as they grow up little by little, they will remember the places their mother took them to, and it will help them mature more easily. Actually, this is the best way to bring about positive change for their future.
Thank you very, very much, both of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Khenpo, and thank you for all those who asked questions. I'm sure we all learned something from them. We thank you all for being here, and we invite you and we'd love you to join us for some tea and delicious refreshments upstairs. Please join us. You will get another chance to speak to Khenpo. Thank you, everybody.